special day today because we have so many wonderful, wonderful minds once again on this screen in front of us today. Guru, thank you, for being here with us and taking this opportunity to kind of speak to all of us and encourage and motivate us as you always do. So to all you girls out there and to the faculty, I just want to say a little bit about Guru. You'll hear a lot more when he speaks, and I'm sure you'll be motivated by what he has to say and share with us. So Guru has served various clients, in developmental finance around strategy and technology and innovation, across the world. He's worked on various initiatives, which is our tax systems as well as Aadhaar. He was there in the Modernization of Banking Technologies. He's worked around the blockchain solutions, cryptocurrencies. I mean, he's a person of more than 20 years of experience with EY, managing sales and innovation around, the India region as well. But I think, I believe I Can Fly goes beyond his career. From what I know of Guru and what I've heard of him and what I've heard of people who've been inspired by him, my daughter is one who was very inspired by Guru as well. I believe I Can Fly is his life story. Guru, we look towards being inspired today. I hope we can all find our wings by the end of your talk. And I hope we can start taking baby little flights. And one day, with your inspiration, with your stories that we hear today, we'll all be able to say, I believe I can fly. So over to you, Guru. Inspire us, please.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you for those.
Yeah, Liz, sorry for interrupting. Liz, you will have to, they will post questions in the chat box. It will be your responsibility to read it a little later.
Ouch. Okay, fine. I'll do that.
Okay. Yes, and because just Rao has put a comment. He said, Guru as Guru.
Right. Oh.
So Liz, I think you and I both have some work to do now. In the
all right.
60 minutes. Good morning, everybody. This has been, frankly, I've some of the people who I can see on the video are known to me, so I met them in the past. But frankly, I thought this is going to be a child's play because I was told I'm supposed to speak to the students. But now I realize suddenly the pressure has gone up with all the people that I see on the screen now. So thank you, Liz, for that introduction. And you exactly made that point. So I didn't want to talk about anything related to work. What happened in the last 20 years, which I think is absolutely irrelevant at this stage for many students that we are addressing today. Right? It's more about what sort of led and what are the, and again, these are not our experiences in isolation. And I think some of these experiences all of us go through. I think at some point in time, all of us need that little bit of an opportunity to look at the rear view and see what has happened and how did we get to where we got here. So these are some of my reflections. And in fact, about a week ago, Koshi, called in his true style, and he said, will you give a lecture to our students? Now, obviously, I wasn't expecting that. So, like many things, that you get from Koshi, this is one of them. So, and I was equally impulsive, and I said yes. And then we went silent for about a couple of days, and then I asked the question. Okay, I did say yes, but what did I say yes to? Right? What are we supposed to do? And then came Matthew, the Savior, and he said, Guru, what is the title of your talk? And that's when, the all pressure sort of landed on my head. And I looked at the mail that he wrote, he replied to. And then I realized that my mail has a signature line. It says, I believe I can fly, which is something I think I wrote that back in 1997 or 98, when initially I started my Hotmail as an account. And this was a song written and produced by a singer called R. Kelly back in the 96. He was also an accomplished basketball player. And that's when I felt that perhaps this signature itself could be a topic of a discussion. So now you know how the topic for this discussion has come about. But what I really wanted to cover is just about 3 stories that I wanted to tell you. Two of them are stories that I've heard or seen outside, and third story is about my own journey in terms of where it started and how it led to, and what are some of those lessons that are important, at least from my point of view, that I have drawn. And I hope that it will resonate with some of you at least, and you'll be able to see, and if you ever reach that situation, you would probably have a method to navigate what next and what needs to be done. So that's the overall objective. And I know I'm talking to a lot of students, so I'll try and make it as less complex as possible. I promise I will not use all the jargons, and also try and pace myself so that you have enough time to go through and understand what's being spoken, right? Now, the reason why, so what I thought was that let's address the elephant in the room, which is the I believe I can fly. And when I saw that sentence, there were 3 things that went through my mind. So one is, I mean, the sentence has 2 operatives. One is belief, and the other one is I can, right? So one is about belief, and the other one is about attitude. I can is an attitude, right? And fly is incidental. I mean, for those who cannot walk, walking is flying. Being able to walk is flying, right? And for those who are not in a position even to walk, maybe crawling is their calling. So it could be anything. It doesn't matter whether it's flying or otherwise. So essentially, if we look at trying to be what we want to be, right? Which, according to me, the state of being in the happiness as a state, and being what we want to be, really is, according to me, the definition of success. Success doesn't have monetary values. Of course, they are all incidental, but this is fundamentally how it sort of resonate with each of us as individuals. Now, if you see the design of this success, essentially it has 3 elements. So I spoke about 2 of them. One is belief, and the other one is about attitude. There is a third element. Again, I'm purely reflecting on what my life has been, right? It may not be suitable for somebody else, or you may find resonance with what I'm experiencing. The third element is about awareness, right? A lot of times what happens is that it's that awareness that doesn't give direction to this concept called belief, right? And of course, if you have belief and awareness, but if you don't have the right attitude, it won't get you far. So what is important, therefore, are these 3 elements, which is belief and attitude and awareness. And I use metaphors because it's much easier for us to remember that way, right? When I look at a computer, I look at these 3 things. So computer essentially has 3 parts, right? It has a motherboard where a lot of information is processed. It has ability to receive instructions, whether we type it on a keyboard or whether we use the mouse or whether we talk to it, whichever way, so that it receives. And third, it has something called an application. So for the nature of work that you want to accomplish using a computer, you have different applications. Now, the motherboard is belief, right? And the language that the machine uses, which is called the machine language, is attitude. Machine language has no confusions. When you press a button which says it's button H, and when you type it, it's H that gets communicated, nothing else, right? If anything else gets communicated, then your computer is faulty. It needs a repair, right? So the language that's used to communicate with the motherboard is, let's say, it's attitude. Awareness is the applications that we use. Now, for every situation, there is a different application. Every application has its own presentation, and every application has its own way of interacting with the user, and it keeps changing. It's never static, right? So awareness for us is also not a static object. It keeps changing as we go through different situations, as we learn different things, as we meet different people, our awareness keeps changing. But remember, what is fundamental in a computer at any given point in time is the motherboard. That's the belief system that we as individual needs to have, right? So that's the design that I wanted to discuss with you. So we've talked about, I believe I can fly. We dissected that into parts. We spoke about belief. We spoke about the attitude, and we spoke about awareness. And let's examine, what are these things and how do they impact us on our day-to-day life, which is where I will briefly share a few stories with you. So long ago, many years ago, in fact, I happened to visit an elephant sanctuary back in Kerala, and I was observing various things. And one of the things that really caught my attention was that many of these elephants were unruly, in the sense that Mahout was not in a position to manage them or instruct them, in a manner that all of them sort of fall in line. That's not what you see. But ironically, when all of them came to eat for their lunch, every elephant started behaving very surprisingly in a disciplined way. And all that the Mahout has done is that Mahout has a 2 feet long stick with him, which probably you can't even use that to beat the elephant, right? Because it's such a giant animal, and it doesn't make any difference to it. Now he places that stick on one of the foot of the elephant. Now the moment the stick is placed, the elephant remains. It doesn't move. It ceases, right? It just stands where it is. And then, of course, they feed the lunch, they feed the food. And until the food is completely consumed, the stick is not to be removed. And until the stick is not to be removed, the elephant cannot move. So that was very surprising to me. So I approached the Mahout and I said, look, what's the secret? I mean, it's such a giant animal. It can possibly crush you to bones, with no time, and it can possibly destroy everything that's around. But why does it just follow that instruction for that stick? Now, the reason is that, so what happens is that when they groom these elephants as they grow, particularly when they sort of are baby elephants, the punishment for disobedience is very severe. Right, so they beat the elephant, or they terrorize the elephant, particularly when it's a baby, and as a result, so the baby elephant, in baby elephant's mind, it's ingrained that if I disobey this stick, the consequences of this punishment are going to be very severe. Right now, the elephant grows to its giant size as they grow. But remember that belief or the fear that the elephant holds also grows along with the elephant, to an extent where even the elephant, after having the opportunity to disobey everything and yet not face any consequences, it still stays on its head that if I disobey this stick, I am going to be beaten up badly. Right? So therefore, if you see, where is the limitation? Is the limitation in its size? No. Is the limitation in circumstances? No, because it's in the jungle, right? It is in its own natural field. And therefore, where is the limitation? So the limitation really is in the mind of that elephant, which is that belief that the elephant carries, that look, if I disobey, I'm going to be challenged. I'm going to be punished. So on and so forth, right? So that's how powerful belief can be in a negative way, right? And towards the end, I'll give you another example to circle this back, an example of a positive belief and how does it sort of change significantly. Now, before that, let me just jump into the story that I promised, which is of my own. So let's talk about a boy, right? Let's talk about a boy who's in a village. This was back 40 years ago. Born in a small village and raised in that village, which at the time did not have electricity, did not have transport facilities, and of course, the place did not have a school or a high school. I did not have a post office, did not have a hospital. So it likes, I mean, imagine a remote village that you can think of. I'm sure many of you come from these locations today, right? So it's not so difficult for us to assume how would that be. Now that's where the story really begins. I'll fast forward to come to a point where we can spend a little bit of time. So the boy obviously finishes his 5th standard, and then comes the first question mark in life: what happens to the high school? Because there is no school in the village. Now the high school is near in a nearby village, which is about 3.5 kilometers. And because I told you that there's no transport facility, so one has to go to school by foot if we have to make it to school. Now anyway, so our circumstances permit and resources available, so the boy gets admitted into high school. So the saga continues. So every day you walk up and down 7 kilometers, no complaints, because obviously they are friends, and being in school is not so bad, at least in those days, because we didn't worry about what scores we get or what rank we got, right? So it was more about waiting for the physical education training, waiting to play some sport. So it was very excitement. In the meanwhile, keep studying what teachers tell you. Teachers ask you to study and sit for exams and so on and so forth. Now that continues for about 5 years until the boy sort of comes to 10th standard, and then you have to sit for the first public exam. Right now, so the exams are over, and about out of 50 students in that class, 48 of them fail. Now, can you imagine? In those days, people in schools, they could fail. Today, probably it's not an available condition, right? Because if you don't get in 90s, then in 90%, then all of us get depressed and go back home saying that, I didn't do well in the exam. This happened, that happened. That teacher was bad, or that lecture was not as I was expecting, and we have a lot of excuses that we muscle up. But frankly, in those days, that's what happened. And fortunately, I am one of those 2 people who passed or aced the exam, as one would call it, right? And I had another friend who actually came even from more remotest part of the country than my village was, right? So anyway, so it keeps the cycle keeps rotating, and then I had to now then go to a junior college where there is +1, +2. So obviously it isn't anywhere in the vicinity. And by then, we also had one state road transport corporation bus that would ply twice a day. One in the morning at about 5:30, and then one at night, which is about 8:30 in the evening. So somehow we adjusted all our lives around those 2 shifts, and sort of admitted myself in the nearby college. But I think soon after I joined in the college, it was very evident to me that I did not like what I was studying, which again wasn't my choice. There is complete lack of awareness. The only thing that we knew, for those who come from south of India, you understand this better. Everybody will tell you that you have to be either a doctor or an engineer. Now, doctor was ruled out because there weren't enough resources. So there was only a pot shot that we could take at becoming an engineer. And if you have to be an engineer, then you have to study sciences. So anyway, so I +1, +2 was mathematics, physics, and chemistry. Like I said, there was mind, but there was no heart, right? In that, and as expected, I did not do well when it came to the final examinations, and then obviously the whole future suddenly becomes very blur. You don't know what to do. Now, that's the situation that I personally experienced many times. And I think every time when you get there, again, you've got to get back to your belief system, right? You have to get back to your attitude. So the attitude of not giving up, right? No matter what, no matter how strong, no matter how tall the wall in front of you is, you still have to retain the ability to or belief that you could climb over or you can demolish. Because if you don't do one of the two, the wall remain always in front of you. And that's when, I took the call and I said, look, this is not going anywhere. I don't think I'm going to be an engineer in my life. So what is next? Therefore, what is the best that I can do given the circumstances that we're in? Again, the awareness part, right? Somebody mentioned to me at that time that, look, there is a town called Vijayawada, which is now a major city. And there's a college called Loyola College, which used to be this, number one science and liberal arts college in the state at that point in time. Now, never did it occur to me that, look, I'm struggling to pass my exams here. Will I ever be able to go and negotiate for admission in this school? That thought never really, crossed my mind. And the next thing that I knew was that I sort of landed up in this college. I distinctly remember it was actually in the month of June when the academic sessions in those days usually used to begin in the month of May. Towards the end of April, early May was when the academics would begin. Now I landed up, at this place towards the end of May, and I said, look, I'd like to meet the principal. Now, which is obviously a big thing for somebody who's unknown. And that college, like I told you, it was the most renowned college. It is still the most renowned college in the country. And you go up there, show up in front of the office and say, I want to see a I want to see the principal. Now, they just dismissed it, saying that this fellow must have come from jungle and a mad fellow, so let's not pay too much attention to it. But for me, and I remember this, in fact, discussing with Hoshi at some point in time, about what sort of leads us to be so stubborn, right? Now, what makes us so stubborn is the lack of opportunity. Like I told you, when there is a tall wall standing in front of you, there is nowhere to go. What do? You just have to be stubborn and say, I'm going to do what I'm good at. I am going to do it until I get what I want. Now, so I used to go to this college principal's office every day at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I would sit next to the peon who used to stand outside the room. And I used to stand next to the peon, actually, because there was no place to sit. And I would there till 5 o'clock in the evening, until the principal has finally shut the shop and said, look, I'm going home. Now I have nothing to do with for the day, right? And my hope was that because the peon wouldn't allow me inside, I had no business to meet him because there's no, I neither got any permission nor have I applied for the college, nothing, right? So why would they let some, random fellow into a principal's room without knowing the reason? But so my hope was that at least the principal one day will take a note of it and say, who is this fellow hanging around outside my room? Or at least, why is this fellow hanging outside my room? Anyway, that saga continues for about 3 days. And finally, on the third day, when he was heading to, his name is Father Kuriakose, he's no more. But I truly believe that it's important that I make that observation that if there is one person who's changed the direction of my life, it would be Father Kuriakose, who's the principal of Loyola at that point in time. And he would in appearance, he would exactly look like Rabindranath Tagore, with his long, white beard and a pleasant smile always. So when you see the picture of Rabindranath Tagore, you can almost, that he had a cousin, or he had maybe a twin. So anyway, so one of those, so on the third day, so he took note of it, and then he asked me to follow to their residences. So because this was a Jesuit institution, it has a church and father's quarters, everything in the campus. So that would about 5 to 7 minute walk from the college campus to their residences. So I had the opportunity, and then I just sort of tagged along. Now we have a problem. Father Kuriakose is from Kerala, so he speaks Malayalam. I speak Telugu. He could speak English, of course, fluently, but I had no understanding of English as a language. I understood when somebody spoke in English, but I never had the ability to respond because all my life, my education was in my mother tongue, which is Telugu. So it was a huge communication barrier between the two. So I was anxious that how am I going to convey to him in 7 minutes that my life is at a crossroads, and he's the one who can actually save me from that. Anyway, so somehow, I don't know if I've used sign language. I don't remember any of it. But finally, it appeared that he got the point, and he told me to see him the next day morning. And as usual, next day morning at 8 o'clock, I arrived in front of his office, and I had an appointment. So he looked at me and he said, "My boy, I thought about it last night, but you see, the academic year is in session, it's in progress, and the entire college is English medium. You don't, I mean, you have a challenge with the language, and therefore, I will have to regret not being able to accommodate you, and that's about it." So, suddenly, in the little dreams that you build overnight comes down crashing, right? And you don't know how you would react and how you need to do. I mean, what you need to do and how you need to react. And anyway, so I was determined, as I said, and I told him in as many words that, look, I don't care if I have to come here every day. I will come without admission, but I want to learn. I will sit outside the class, right? And maybe I appear for exams privately, right? So, anyway, net, I think he realized that this is one tough nut, so we can't manage this in a regular channel. So he told me that, okay, listen, I'll give you provisional admission, which means you're not a student, but you can sit in the class. And those days they used to have a concept called trimesters. It's not annual exams. So exams happen 3 times in a year, and the aggregate of all those marks are considered as the final score. So he said, you have to sit for the first term, and if you score in all 5 subjects more than 60%, then I will confirm your admission. Or else, you got to pack your bags and go home. So that was the deal. And I said, again, you are drowning, right? And there is no hope of any possibility, any opportunity. And suddenly you have this, little string of, I don't know, maybe it's someone through for fishing, right? But how do I care? So you just have to hold on to it and then see, look, what it takes you. The worst case is that the person who's fishing would probably think, I caught the big fish, and they'll rescue you, right? Because they will pull you out of waters. And if not, the thread will break, and you will be drowned again, which anyway is a situation that you are exposed to, right? I accepted finally the offer. Long story short, I promptly failed in 2 of those subjects, because obviously it was very, very difficult for me even to understand, because everything was happening in English. So I failed in 2 subjects, but in 3 subjects I crossed 60%, which in those days was a big deal and called first class, right? If you cross 70%, you're called distinction, first class with distinction. Nowadays, of course, it's very different. They probably pat your bag if you cross 95. Or anything less than 90, your parents won't give you food for two days, right? So, but days, obviously the times have changed. But then, there was one thing, I think, that's something that's very important for all of us. I think our moral compass, our value system, no matter what difficulty that we go through, will have to be very firm. And I therefore went back to him and I said, Father, I disappointed you. And I'm really sorry. I could not pass all the 5 exams with 60%. Here is my progress report. And 3 I passed, and 2 of them when I failed. And I've not come here to give you reasons as to why it happened. I just wanted to thank you and wanted to let you know I'm going back to my village. And that is about it. Right? So it was a fair, straight, 1-minute conversation. And before I crossed the gates of that college, which is a very big college, so it takes about 15 minutes for someone to cross the gates. Now the security at the gate stopped me and said, Father Kuriakose want to see you. So I walked back, and he said, look, I'm moved with your honesty, and I think what is important is that you never gave up. Attitude is important for people to succeed in life, and the fact that you wanted to play by fair rules. I have decided to give you admission, and therefore you can resume classes from tomorrow. And then, of course, the whole formalities have begun. Now, for me, the reason why I took so long for you to narrate that story, not so much before or after, is because it's actually that admission into that college may not be so much academically, but in all other aspects, which is the attitude that I spoke about and the awareness was immense. And obviously, after that, I never really, at least academically and even professionally, never had to look back for anything, right? Because the college gave everything. It had given access. It had exposed me to areas that I've never imagined have existed on the earth in terms of opportunities. But there was one thing that I was clear, and as I told you, the string of not being very interested in sciences as a subject in +1, +2, that streak sort of continued. But at the same time, the college also gave me the opportunity to refocus in areas where I could possibly excel, and that may not be exams necessarily, right? So I joined the literary club of that college, and we were a team of 3 people. We aced that area, which meant basically story writing, storytelling, poetry writing, poetry recital, debates, and elocutions, right? So those were the faculties of that particular group, and 3 of us went around the state, and in a few times even at a national level, and we won every shield that we participated, and obviously at the end of third year, the successor of that principal was Father John. Father John actually called me to commend the efforts that have happened. And in fact, he said, we are so proud that the fact, we managed to retain you, because otherwise, we wouldn't have had this shelf full of, shields. Now, again, it's not my sole contribution. As I said, it's obviously a team. But the fact is that I wouldn't shy away from taking a little bit of credit there. So I think, all of us go through those moments. So I think some of us go through in the form of academic entries. Some of us struggle to find our first job, and some of us struggle to find what our next move is. And for example, in this one, so towards the end of it, we realized that we're not going to get anywhere with a BSc in hand if we want to make it big in life. So yeah, in fact, I put together a team of 5 of us. And we said, look, why don't we go to companies and invite them for campus placements, which was something that was not heard of. This was in year 1995. There were barely any jobs, let alone companies visiting and giving you jobs on campus. So we sort of came together, and I said, okay, now I'm weak in language, I'm weak in communication. So I need a couple of people who are good in communication, right? So 2 of those 5 people were fine English speaking, well communicated boys, and we needed somebody who's academically good, right? Because otherwise companies would think all of them are duds and can speak some good English, right? So we had the ace runner in the class with respect to academics and marks, and we had one more person who had a little bit of resources. He came from a rich background, so he had money if we have to conduct any events and this and that. So 5 of us went around the country, in the sense, contacted around the country, and we brought about 10 companies on campus that year. That was the first year when there was placements happen. Thankfully, all 5 of us were placed, and through that round. And in addition, they also hired recruited another 20 people. Now, therefore, it gave opportunity for someone like me to even experiment concepts of that kind, right? Bringing people together, setting up teams, and being able to see what is it that can be done. Of course, I continued in that job for about, I think, 6 months exactly. And then I realized that that wasn't my calling, and there's something else that I needed to do in order to achieve, in order to experience the larger world. And that sort of led to my pursuit to pursue education further in the UK. And then I went to university in London, and I gained my master's in computer science and artificial intelligence and other subjects. But again, if I were to trace back, in psychology we call it butterfly effect, right? So if I were to trace back for what those butterfly effect according to me, it had to be those 3 days that I stood outside the principal's room, right? If I did not, then nothing would have happened. I wouldn't have been here in terms of, sharing my own experiences with you. I think 2 things that I wanted to leave behind with this story. So one, it's natural for all of us to be confused. And I was confused for large part of my academic life. I had no idea what I was heading to. All I knew, I had fear. I had fear of exams, right? And I used to dread the times of those exams, sitting there and having that fear that I may actually fail, right? A lot of times it actually led me not to even start the task, right? So I just avoided that like plague because I had this fear that if I attempt it, I may not succeed, right? Now, this whole experience in college and what we managed to do, in some sense, sort of unshackled all those fears. The second point is that it is a reality that whether it's in academic life, whether we in our early years or middle ages or even old age, problems are always going to be there. They will always be in front of us, right? But I have never come across a problem where the situation has not presented itself with a solution as well. It's just that often because we are anxious, because we have fear, we fail to notice what that solution is. Problem and solution always coexist. It's our inability to see the solution makes us dread the problem, right? So that's the second learning that I've had. And successfully, as I told you, there were many occasions where, sometimes, when we are navigating those situations, we may look like idiots. People may think we are nuts, right? But frankly, it doesn't matter. So long as it gets you to a solution, because it's the same set of people. Once if you cross the river, they look at you and then say, oh, he is swimming, right? They may have criticized about the way how you shake your leg when you swim, but it's the same set of people who will tell you, oh, it's all wonderful, right? So that's the second lesson. Third, again, I think the circumstances that we live, the environment where we exist, it is always opportunities are in abundance in those spaces, whether it's my village or whether it's all of you. I mean, look at the opportunity all of you have, right? Because this is not what you probably have thought 5 years ago or 10 years ago, right? So today you have an institution that's willing to provide opportunity to learn. It's bringing people from different walks of life, from different parts of the world. It's giving you an opportunity to speak to them, right? No, so therefore, what the students, the college administration, faculty, and all the good people that you have on this call, who are playing advisory roles, what is it that they're bringing? They're bringing a ton of experience that you can dip into. It's like a well full of water, right? It's up to you how much water you want to draw from this well. Now, a lot of people around the country do not have this opportunity. They do not have this exposure. They do not know what the world beyond their immediate circumstances or situations look like, right? So all of you in that sense are in a very privileged position. Now, all that you have to do now is to have a strong belief about yourself, within yourself, right? And resolve that, look, there is nothing that's impossible. And if only we put our mind together and if we put our heart together and just go through the difficulties that we may have to, right? As you navigate that journey, please remember, awareness is essential, which means that your continuous learning as you go through is extremely important. Doesn't matter whether you're in college or otherwise. Actually, it's only when you leave the college where you have to learn the most, because everything else that setup is situated to encourage not to learn, right? So you have to make that extra effort, in fact, to learn. And the other element that I spoke about, which is attitude. Never give up that attitude of the winner, right? Never even allow the thought of failure crossing you. Although it's not wrong to fail, right? But it is certainly wrong if you have not attempted on anything, right? So therefore, those are the lessons that I draw from my own experience. And I promised you that I will give you third story, right? Now, the third story is about how a positive belief can essentially make a difference. Now, a lot of times I look at sports for metaphors because it's something that's easy. It's so difficult for us to prove somebody good in physics, right? Unless if they win a Nobel Prize, and nowadays we even criticize those who win Nobel Prizes. So that's obviously is not a fair place to look at. Sports is where all of us experience, all of us have a point of view. We understand the game. So early in the days, I had the story of this athlete called Roger Bannister. I'm sure a lot of you may have heard about it. Roger Bannister comes from the UK. Is a runner, is a sprint, is an athlete in running, and in the 50s. This was back in 1952. The strongest belief in the the sports medicine and the sports physiology world is that humans have a barrier called 4 minute a mile, which means that humans cannot cover a distance of 1 mile running under 4 minutes, right? So that's the belief, and there were hundreds of theories as to how is it not possible, anatomically, physiologically, physically, physics-wise. How does it sort of defy the dynamics and the fluid state physics, as they call it. Now, here's the man who stood up and said, look, now I need, why can't I break this barrier? Right? Why can't I make myself successful in covering this distance in less than 4 minutes? And what is it that's stopping, right? And therefore, till then, every athlete heard the stories, heard the theory, heard the limitations that all the coaches were training their athletes on. But he was one rather. He said, look, hell with all of this. I'm going to make my attempt. Long story short, Roger Bannister in 1952 breaks the barrier of 4 minute a mile, and he covers the distance under 4 minutes. Actually, it's a few seconds less than 4 minutes, but nevertheless. So the news is that he broke the record. He broke a limitation that humans are bestowed upon themselves as an impossibility, right? Now, the moment that happens, when he breaks that barrier, in the same year, in 1952, there are 27 other athletes who actually breaks that barrier. And in the next 1 year, there are approximately 225 people who breaks that barrier, who covers the distance of a mile or in less than 4 minutes. And today, in fact, it's probably about 3.6, 3 minutes, 60 seconds is the 3.6 minutes is the limit that we have. And of course, there are many who actually even cross that barrier. Now, again, if he did not believe in the fact that he could crack that record, nothing would have been possible, because he wouldn't have even attempted to do that, right? So, but is there any physical training that he received additionally in order to break that barrier? Answer is no. He received the same training. He received exactly the same input as any other athlete, or he himself, because he was already a trained athlete, trained runner. So it's just the belief in your mind that can make you break these barriers. So the choice often is with us. Do we want to be the elephant in my first story, or do we want to be the Roger Bannisters, right, in my last story? Now, the story in the middle only attempts to connect both sides of it. Or maybe some of it has happened, as in the case of elephant in my life, and there are many cases that have happened, as in the case of Roger Bannister, right? But the combination of it will always make you happy, will always possibly shape you as what you want to be shaped as, not by what others want you to be. And third, and the most important, it makes you happy, right? So those are the three stories, and those are the couple of messages that I wanted to leave behind. I know we are about 45 minutes into the session, and I'm happy to take any questions if we have.
Thank you, Guru. That was super, super motivational. Girls, faculty, anyone, any questions? Or are you all searching for your wings now? I think they'll take a few moments to maybe kind of absorb and think and give out their questions. So we have Ravi saying, interesting, motivational. Any questions, anyone? Yeah, I think it's a lot of introspection that's going to happen after your talk, Guru. It's been amazing. So
perfect. So Liz,
yeah, so I think there are no questions. Oh, there is. I think there is a question. That's Abhijit. Do you mind talking about how you landed your first job? And we have Sunil. What do you aspire for in life today after having achieved so much? I think that's a great question. Yeah. So those two questions. Yep.
Sure. Thanks, Liz. So I'll start with with Sunil's question. So I'm sure it's always loaded, right? With Sunil asks. So Sunil, firstly, I think God has been kind, and of course, I've had the fortune of friends like you, and I know some of you are on the screen. So personally, I don't think I've achieved so much, but yes, relatively, where I began, I often compare it that way. I think it's a long distance that I traveled, right? So back in the days when I was going to college, if anybody asked my dad, what do you think that your son would be? He would have been probably said, I think if he can make it to a lower divisional clerk in a government office, I think it's a great achievement for him. So that's probably what is expected. I think if I were to compare there, definitely much progress. There's no doubt. Sunil, when I started working with government, essentially what inspired Sunil is two things. One is there is something that, again, a reflection of my own journey. I always dislike two things. One is unexplored potential and avoidable suffering. And if you see, I know it sounds very, superficial in a way, but I genuinely believe that the problems of India are not in some investments or some foreign companies coming in and putting all of this. It's not that. I think we've just been a generation or multiple generations, which has been sort of drawn downwards in our ability to do good for ourselves. And I think two things, if I were to manifest in two ways, one is that we still do not have a system that recognizes equitably, that distributes opportunities equitably for all the people, right? And as a result, we a lot of times squander the productivity that people have in different quarters just because we are unable to give opportunities for them. By no means I am drifting towards what Kangana Ranaut is talking about. I'm not talking about nepotism, and I don't want to go anywhere close to those quarters in terms of my conversation. But I think we just lack that equitable distribution of opportunities as a society. The second thing that that has drawn me towards working with governments is avoidable suffering. And I think there can never be a better time than what we are going through today to actually see the difference, see the impact of what we have neglected as a society all this while. It's still rich and super connections that gets you the care that's required. We've just not been able to lessen the suffering of those who are at the quintessentially bottom of the pyramid. So those are the two things that have drawn me towards working with governments. And if I were to compare on that journey, I don't think I have made much progress. So I don't even know if the journey that I'm on is the answer or it needs a different direction. But that's my calling. I mean, that's the confusion that I'm on right now. And that's a contemplation that I'm involved in. So that's the answer. So the second one, Liz, that you spoke about, how did I land in my first job? I think, even after going to London for my higher education, the story being the same because, you were an overseas student there. You don't have the right to work and remain in UK beyond your studies. And those were the days when immigration wasn't taken very kindly in Britain, at least. So it was very difficult. I remember, and of course, I also did not go to red brick universities, as they're called, Oxford, Cambridge, and University of London. I did not go to them because they were so elite and expensive. They refused to give me a scholarship. So I went to the university that gave me scholarship, right? So, but unfortunately, not a lot of companies have visited that campus because it wasn't very known. And then I said, okay, now I have to do my bit. And then I started applying to companies randomly. And I remember at some point, I used to have this thick file. I applied to 275 companies. And a group of friends, when they, and I always used to keep it under the wrap so that people don't ridicule me. But somebody caught hold of it and said, look, are you out of your mind that you applied for 275? And my response, I still remember, I told them that, look, I only need one, right? I don't care if 274 are useless, so long as that I get my 275th one, right? So, and again, so I think that attitude of not to give up sort of remained in some sense. And finally, of course, it landed a very good job, actually. So I had an offer from Standard Chartered in their treasury department as an international recruit. So I spent about a year and a half in Standard Chartered. And then I realized that, going to this place at 8 in the morning and coming out at 4 is not what I'm cut out for. And when I was looking for opportunities, that's when I dabbled on EY in London. And because of work permit restrictions, they then put me through, incidentally, Sunil Chandiramani, who's on the call here. So that's how I landed, ended up working with Sunil and EY in India. So that's how my first job, that's how I landed up in my first job.
Lisa, I think you have to. Cindy has asked a nice question.
Yes, you have a lot more questions, Guru. I am just going to read out all of them to you, and then you can kind of put your thoughts together on that. Yeah.
No, Cindy is there. Above.
There is. Okay. Matthew,
no, can I read it?
Sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
Cindy says, when can we know, and how should we know when is the right time to press the play button?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yes, that's what I thought. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I wish I have a straight answer for that. But this is what at least, again, if I were to look back and all those events, I fundamentally believe that all of us have our own Wi-Fi's, our own radio waves around, right? Now, imagine if when you're running towards a wall, there is at a certain point, we know intuitively that if we run beyond this point, we're going to crash into the wall, right? That's when you have to apply the brakes and sort of stay back, right? Again, as I said, I can go through each of those incidents that have happened and give you a perspective, but I don't really think that is going to help because all of us go through different situations. But there is that moment that if we carefully observe our own journey, that we know that this is the point where we need to where we either need to accelerate or we need to stop our journey or we need to take a different direction. I think knowing that GPS point is very vital for success. And I'm glad that you asked that question. And that, of course, only comes with a lot of experience and, more importantly, awareness of the situation that we are in. Otherwise, it might just make us very impractical, ego-driven crashers because, we just keep crashing into everything that comes in our way. So I think, it has to be something that individuals have to cultivate. But all I can tell you is that it is possible. And in fact, all of us, without fail, have that intuition. It's just that we do not often pay enough attention to it. And therefore, we don't realize when is that point.
Yeah. So it's also about strong introspection that we need to do frequently whenever we're faced with failure or, even the low points in life. The ability to sit down and introspect and say, where have I really gone wrong? How can I be honest with myself? Yeah, Guru. I have a couple more questions, Guru. Sorry, if you have the time, would you have the time?
Have the time? I think.
I have time. It's fine.
So,
I have.
okay, so there is from Tirumurti. I'm going to read them all out.
No,
And then you can...
before, Alisa, before that, one Deepa is there.
Yeah, I've got all the questions down, Matthew. I'm going to
Okay.
read them out. Yeah. Tirumurti, how can we overcome from childhood suppression? And he's also said, to support your talk, I would like to quote here the 595th Tirukkaral. With rising flood, the rising lotus flower, its stem unwinds. The dignity of men is measured by their minds. That's very nice words that he's given. So how do we overcome from childhood suppression? Deepa has written, how do you motivate yourself to get work done after trying many things and failing over and over again? Yeah, those two first, Guru.
Liz, could you please repeat the second question again?
How do you motivate yourself to get work done after trying many things and failing over and over again?
Perfect. Sure. Thank you. I think on the first one about childhood or memories that we carry, whether they are good or bad, and how do we manage that, right? So I'll give you an example. So a lot of times, I personally believe, it's important that I know today, nowadays in the corporate world, we just glamorize the whole concept to an extent that people stop believing, which is that sitting down and reflecting on what happened, right? I mean, we give a lot of importance to it in a lot of talk shows and of course in corporate meetings, but in action, very few people actually do it. And I think my view is that the best way to do that, and this is what I do, is that it's best that if it is, when it is addressed on when it is much smaller, right? Which means that at the end of the day, every day, if you can have your own downtime of 10 minutes, right? Just reflecting on what happened on that day, and what are the things that you would like to carry forward, and what is it that you want to drop them dead at that point, whether they are emotions, whether they are egos, whether they are real, work related, maybe some output that you have produced, which has come under criticism or praise, whichever way, right? So I think it just takes about 10 minutes. Now, if you extend that maybe once in a quarter, you take a little longer time. But I do it so as I said, I do it every 10 minutes every day. And I necessarily have my breaks once a quarter. So I have my own time. No one else comes with me on these on these visits, the stores that I go on. I take a week off, right, and just stay at one place. And I love reading, so I keep my companion with me, which are books, and then and just spend that 1 week of downtime once a quarter. If you can't do it, try and do it sort of once a year. But definitely, it will help you to clean up a lot of baggage that we would want to carry forward, and it will also give you good inspiration in terms of what you want to carry forward. What are the good things that you've done, and you want to sort of take them forward. The second question with respect to how do we motivate ourselves and doing it, I think pardon me if I sound a little esoteric or philosophical. I think that's where the whole purpose comes into mind. And I often quote this story. Apologies for those who do not have theological background or theological bent, if not background. If you read the Indian scripture, the Bhagavatam, which is the celebration of life of Lord Krishna, and if you look at this birth, he was born as ninth child to his mother, and there was a threat on his life because his maternal uncle was told by the gods that it is the ninth child of your sister who's going to kill you, right? And therefore beware of that ninth child. So as a result, the maternal uncle imprisons his own sister, and every time when there is a baby is born, so he ends up sort of killing them at birth. But then the father of Lord Krishna, who's Vasudeva, he sees the big picture, right? He's told by the gods that, look, it's your ninth child who's going to be the savior of the world, right? He's going to make he's going to do a lot of good things. So it's upon you to save the life of that ninth child. So, so then, so he gets confused, and he's in imprisonment. How could he do it? Anyway, so upon the arrival of ninth child, so just outside the prison, so the king keeps a donkey as the watchdog, right? So the job of the donkey is to bray the moment a child is born in the prison, and of course the prison is right on the edges of a deep river, right? Now, of course, they're all mythological. So I'm not saying that go by every incident. Just focus on what the message is, right? So he then resolves that, look, if I have to safeguard this child, which means that I have to safeguard the future of this world and somebody who's going to make a huge difference. One, I have to now go to the donkey and plead that please do not bray. So he goes to the donkey, and the donkey says that, look, if you touch my feet, I will not bray. But he says that, look, I am the bloody king. How can I touch your feet? You're after all, you're a donkey. But then he realizes his bigger calling, right? Bigger purpose. And then he touches the feet of donkey. And the donkey doesn't bray. He goes to the river and he prays to the river and says that, look, I have to transport this child onto the other side to save the world. And the river gives way, right? I mean, you can ask me, how did that happen? I have no idea. But then he sort of crosses the river and saves Lord Krishna. Now, if I were to come back, and if Lord Krishna is the purpose in that context, I think once if you have purpose, then you will have the resilience to put up with a lot of difficulties that you face. And a lot of times, remember, in order to achieve the ends, the means may be very different. They may not be in the direction that, for example, my objective is to, set up a company that is able to provide healthcare to millions of people. And in order to do that, I need a lot of money to set it up. And if the only opportunity for me is to now do a job, be in an employment that I do not enjoy, but I know the proceeds of that could go towards that, then I'll have enough resilience to bear with the dissatisfaction that I go through. All right. And I think that is more important. A lot of times what happens is that we often confuse with long-term bigger purpose with short-term gains. And as a result, we therefore go through those either moments of elation or elation or moments of despair, right? Both of them sort of go hand in hand. So my advice is that I think if you are reasonably clear what that purpose is, you will automatically gain enough resilience to go through the immediate setbacks or immediate dissatisfactions as the case may be. Over to you, Liz.
Shall I read? I think Liz is...
Yeah, sure.
Guru, yeah, this is Rao's question. It comes with a statement also. He says...
I'm on mute. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I will read.
So
Rao's
thanks.
question, Rao's question is, thanks, Guru, for the excellent talk. As a student, I failed in class 5 and will speak to you about it another day. I have a question. How do you build good habits on everyday routines that lead you to keep going every day?
Matthew, sorry, could you please repeat that first part?
He's saying, how do you build good habits every day on everyday routines that will lead you to keep good every day?
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. Thanks.
Sorry, Liz, because you are on mute. I asked.
No problem.
Thanks, Rahul.
Should I just leave the rest of it to you, Guru, so that we have all the questions, because a lot of them I think are superimposing on the others.
Sure.
So yeah, Grace says, how can we be stable while facing failures, and how do we overcome that? Veera Lakshmi says, we do have positive and negative beliefs. How do we transform our negative beliefs to positive in terms of mental strength? With Sheila, who says, in our journey of achievement, 20% encouragement and motivation is there, but 80% discouragement and obstacles. How can we overcome this? What are your suggestions? Tamil Selvi, which is the best one for living happily ever after, which is always thinking positive or analyzing the problem? So, yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Les. I think, all of them more or less in the same direction, right? So I'll try and see if I can answer that. So again, thank you for asking these questions. And frankly, some of them, my only fear at this point in time is, I know fear was bad, but that I may disappoint you with my answers, or my answers may not be adequate, right? So because again, a lot of them I'm also experiencing them as we speak. I'm not, not arrived in life in any sense of the word. So I think I think failure and success, according to me, are again, it's well spoken, is two shades of the same coin, right? So they're not different from each other. And secondly, according to me, there is nothing called failure. There is no defined failure, right? There may be a defined success, but the failure is nothing but our inability to meet the expectations of success. It is in us, right? So the moment we self-reflect on what has led to those circumstances where we have not done what was supposed to be, because again, see, there are only two scenarios, right? One, something was possible and we have not been able to do it, or we conceived something that was impossible. These are the only two scenarios that exist when you talk about failure. And remember, one is external. So if you have conceived something that is impossible, then you can be part happy because the problem is maybe 50% outside. But if it is your own making of the inadequacy in terms of meeting the expectations of what gets you to be successful, then it is a reflection that we need to do. A lot of times, I think, there's again, my own view. You don't have to agree with me, or I mean, if you agree with me, it's fine, but not necessarily that you have to agree with me. Which is that, when you begin to apportion the right extent of reasons for failure to yourself, you are often at peace. A lot of times, what happens is that we spend time in identifying problems with that person, this person, that circumstance, this circumstance, somebody has not done their job, so on and so forth. But the reality is that we are just trying to camouflage what otherwise belonged to us. It's in our code. I think the very realization that you are essentially, maybe taking the same 80-20 metaphor, 80% you are responsible, then it is very likely that you will be at peace. The moment when you begin to apportion your failure to, or rather appropriate failure to others, is when you have a lot of anxiety, because then you have to put up with so many things, right? When you say something, they're going to retort with something else, and then it gets into an argument, it gets into justifications. These become in our corporate world, we call them annual appraisals, right? It becomes it's an unwieldy task where nobody's achieving, nobody's getting anywhere, and nobody's justifying anything. But in the end, there'll be some marking that's done at the end of it that will remain. So I think a lot of it, for you to believe that you are primarily responsible for your successes and failures, will allay a lot of pressure that you carry. The second one is that I think a lot of people asked about how do we, when you are in a distressed state, when you are in a helpless state in a way, when you are met with the failures repeatedly, so how do you sort of motivate yourself? I think the simple technique there is that all of us are a bundle of successes and few failures. Now, what happens is that neither success nor failure is permanent. So what I do is that I look back maybe 3 years, 4 years, 10 years, 20 years, right? As long as you can go back. And there are always situations which at that time you believe were impossible, right? Could not be done. No way how I can achieve what I intend achieving. And I gave you my own life example, right? So if 30 years ago, 40 years ago, if you'd gone to my father and said, look, what do you think that your son will become one day? He would have said he would become a clerk in government office, right? Fast forward 40 years. I'm at a certain position, which is obviously not what was anticipated. So I think when we constantly focus on those events that appeared impossible at that time, and how did we make those things happen, then you begin to see a pattern. Now, some of those experiences certainly are saddled with failures, but all of us have overcome those situations. I think when we look back at those instances and see what has led to where we are and what has helped us navigate through those times, I think we will then find not only a pattern, but also few answers in terms of what is required to be done. And again, I don't think you should listen to someone. You should try and emulate their experiences as yours. It is purely a self-reflection that you have to go through, right? So to again go back to the example that I gave you at the beginning, that not doing academically very well, but I've also had instances where I had excelled academically, right? Both have existed in my own life. If I had imagined if I had believed at that point that this is it and no road ahead, I would have remained where I was. But the fact is that I navigated the whole world through that. So a lot of times inspiration is with us, but because the intensity of the problem that we are in a current situation always, it sort of outweighs the solutions that we found in the past. So as a result, we discount all of them. I think one way that I find is that whenever I'm in a tricky situation, whenever I'm in a situation that is likely to lead me to a failure, I often ask the question that how did I navigate them in the past? Because as I said, the fact is I have navigated successfully, as all of you. Otherwise, all of us would have been dead at birth, right? The moment we were born, we learned to circumvent situations. We learned to breathe, which was not natural when you were in the womb of a mother. You didn't know how to breathe when you were in the mother's womb. So our experiences actually begin there. It's just that we often undermine them as unimportant because the current situation or the present situation that you are in often overweighs all these experiences. Over to you, Liz.
Thanks, Guru. There was one last question, but I think you have more or less answered it. But if you think you need to add to it, you may, which is from Minnie. How do you have a positive thing in your day-to-day life? And the fact that you have to meet your targets and, you have a busy day, you have a chock-a-block full day, but how do you keep things positive despite all the pressures of life? I think that's the last question. I will not, I think we won't have time to take any more, Guru, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's now, I'll have to get to my next call, but yes, I can take up this question, Liz. Absolutely fine. So thanks, Liz, for this question, and thanks for those who have asked this question. Again, I think we are in a more deglamorized way. We call it the routine, right? So, but frankly, I don't think it's so deglamorized. All of us must have a routine, and all of us must know where we're going to spend our time and what gives us the inspiration. I think some of us are fortunate that the work that we do in itself is an inspiration. I think we have many examples here, but I will have to pick on one. And if I have to pick on one, I would pick on Koshi. So ask Liz, privately, Koshi and his love for work, right? So he keeps cribbing through the day, but he's at it even at 10:30 in the night. Okay, so I think Koshi is the best example for that. I think so. Obviously, I'm not as dedicated or determined as Koshi in terms of work. So I do have my own time. Like I told you, I often take 10 minutes in terms of reflection before I go to bed. I like reading, so I keep time for reading. And I have to also say this, that I like what I do, and therefore I think there are of course, there are days where I feel mundane and bored about what I do. But I think, proportionately, there is a lot more that I enjoy doing what I'm doing than sort of, sit back and crib about the work that happens. So I think, it takes a lot of pressure away particularly when you like what you do. But at the same time, I think, someone earlier asked this question about childhood memories. I think, I've realized this, about last 5-6 years. There are a lot of things that we wanted to do as kids, and one of it for me was that goes back to the theme of the discussion, which is flying, right? So I confused myself when I just about to go to college that maybe it meant I wanted to be a pilot, and I even made a misadventure of training to be a pilot, and soon after I realized it needed a lot of money, and therefore I gave up that part and moved on to regular academics. But then, much later I realized that I did not mean flying like as an aircraft or a pilot, because by now I have done, if not millions, maybe thousands of tens of thousands of miles in terms of flying. Then I realized that my flying was literally flying, right? I remember this is still, on 22nd, 23rd of December 2019, I suddenly said, I have to finish this thing. It's bothering me from the childhood. So I called up randomly a flying club in Spain, and I told them that, look, I'm going to land up on 25th of December, and I want to earn my skydiving license before beginning of 2020. That's what 2019. And so they said, no, we're booked, and this is the season actually. So you won't get slots now. So don't bother. So please don't show up. But then I said, no, I have to do this, right? So that's again going back to my college moment. So I had to get admission in that college. So I actually landed up in this place called Sevilla, a small town near Sevilla. I booked myself in the only hotel that was there in the village. And at 5 o'clock in the morning on 26th, sorry, I landed up at the flying club. And I said, look, I came here for admission. So they said, are you nuts? People book years in advance. So it won't happen. So I said, no, so I came all the way from India. You can't turn me down. Doesn't matter. I'm sure somebody won't show up, right? So I'm going to sit here and I wait for that slot to be free. Again, long story short, so they felt that this fellow is incorrigible. So we have to fit him somewhere. So they finally gave me a slot and gave me an instructor. So the first thing that instructor asked me, so what's your age? So I said, I'm 43. So he said, forget it. You're not going to jump out of an aircraft. This is not happening. This is not the age at which you train. By then, people obviously would have finished hundreds of jumps. So he said, my advice to you is that you do a tandem, which means that they'll attach you to a trainee, the experienced trainer, and then you jump along with them. And they said, look, feel the experience. If you are still brave enough, we'll admit you in the course. So I said, no, I'm sorry. I've already paid my fee. Right? I'm willing to take the risk. I want to jump out of the aircraft in my first jump, and I don't want any tandem or being hooked onto somebody else. Anyway, so that negotiation went on for almost half a day. Finally, they said, you're not going to give up. So they said, but if you don't like it, we're not going to return the fee. I said, that's the whole deal, because it's the fear of losing that money makes me jump out of the aircraft, right? So let me have that inspiration. And then I do it. Anyway, long story short, I did about 12 jumps in that trip. I couldn't finish my license. I had to clear 7 levels. I cleared 5 of them and hoping to go back and finish something. But again, that was somebody asked me this question, what were you thinking when you actually jumped out of an aircraft on your own for the first time, right? So what went through your mind? Frankly, I think for the first few nanoseconds, I was blanked out because I had no clue what had just happened, right? And I was trying to save myself from the propeller, which was making noises next to me. And the second one is that I felt it is so easy. I mean, I just waited 40 odd years, if not 40, at least 35 odd years, to just break this thing in my head that it is so easy to jump out of an aircraft and land safely. And thankfully, I had a safe landing on my first jump. So I didn't have to go through all the difficulties that people usually go through. So I think in a way, a lot of times, you just have to act upon it. And I don't see any reason why we carry, whether they're good or bad influences from the childhood, through us. I mean, it's past. You just have to, as they say, let it go or be dragged. If you're carrying a wood with you, a dead wood, how long can you carry? If you don't let it go, at some point it begins to drag you along with it, right? And I think it has to be action. I don't think it can be done sitting in a room and thinking about breaking all these barriers. Some of it, I think we have to push ourselves. And thankfully, I continued the run, and 2019-20 transition, I went to Antarctica, and I said, let's go on an expedition to Antarctica. So December 2019, I went to Antarctica. So I think, it then becomes, you look at how easy things are, how simpler things are. Of course, you need resources. I'm not saying these are all easy to get by, but what are we earning for? You just keep a little part of money aside and do these things. I think that's how you break these barriers that you have, that you carry from childhood.
Wow, that's before I pass on the session to end off to Matthew to give the thanks to you, Guru. Thanks from my side. And I'd like to just read out a little message which has come here from K. Monisha in the chat box, which I thought is just absolutely perfect, resonance to what you've just shared with us today. So Monisha says, your motivational speech drained out all the negative thoughts that were inside me and gave me courage that I can also achieve something. Definitely, I believe that I can fly. Thank you so much, sir. Well said, Monisha. Beautiful.
Yes.
Over to you, Matthew.
Yeah,
thank you.
Is there anybody here would like to, one of our SSC members here, half minute? Koshi?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, I was saying if anyone would like to say a little, otherwise I will get into this.
Yeah, Marcus sent a message that he was unable to talk. Marcus,
Marcus, yes.
Can you hear me?
Where's Fadida? Everybody is here.
Yeah,
okay.
Marcus, you speak.
Good morning to everybody. Still quite early here in Europe. Was very good to hear and see you. Thank you, Guru, for the inspirational talk and examples. I'll be back on this side to talk in about 2 weeks. So I wish everybody a very good day. Great community.
All right. Can I make a couple comments?
Of course.
Great. So I just wanted to say that, I've known Guru now for several years, and every bit of what he's spoken is so very true, right? I have never seen him shy away from a challenge. I have never seen him ever give up, right? He's been one of the most outstanding professionals that I have come across. And even this entire talk of his, right? It's not that I'm the only one watching it. I've had my wife who, otherwise would not sit through a lot of this, but she refused everything and she was sitting, very, very impressed with this. And something she turned around and said, I think this is something that every child should actually listen through. So Guru, thank you so very much for this. I'm sure all the girls have enjoyed it, loved it. And I can turn around and tell you that this is one speech that is going to go viral. I wish you all the very best in whatever your dreams are. Outstanding. Thank you on behalf of everybody.
Sunil, we have made sure that this is recorded and that we will make sure it will be available in the YouTube channel, so you can be the first one to start the viraling of that.
Absolutely.
Is there anyone else? Otherwise, shall I? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, Guru. I think it is. You spoke from the heart. I could feel it. I was also overwhelmed by your brilliant speech. Now you will have competitors. We believe we can also fly.
Please.
For flying. So anyway, it was nice, and incidentally, it's a very small world. The Father Kuriakos you mentioned is my dad's cousin. My dad and he come from the same family, from one of the small villages in the hills of Kerala, Idiki.
This is a nuclear world, Matthew. I'm so happy to hear that.
We should have a session with both of you on now, Father Kuriakos and you, Guru.
Okay, okay, and that is why. And otherwise, I would like to thank Guru for that excellent. And I could see your commitment, because for the last 1.5 hours you have been standing and speaking, while each of us were sitting in our own chairs and listening to you. So that shows your commitment. I would like to thank you from the heart of each and everyone listening here. There are a lot of teachers as well as students. I would like to thank all SAC members, particularly Marcus, for joining us so early in his day. Thank you. And since I might miss others, so I am not naming each person who is here. Thanks each one of you. It comes from all of us. And I would like to thank our faculty and other staff and the students who are listening to this. It was excellent to have you, host you here. And thank you so much. I would like to wind up by saying that today, incidentally, is Liz's birthday too.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think it's a privilege to be, wished on this forum. Thank you so much. I also got, lovely wishes from all the girls singing for me. Divya sent this beautiful recording, and I said, what a lovely way to start my day. So thank you. Thanks, Matthew.
Matthew,
Thank you. Thanks.
Matthew, I've been motivated to say, after listening to the speech of Guru, I have heard this before, and I told him I wanted to tell the story to this larger crowd. So I think that this is not just a message that he said, but I think there's a larger message that has to go into every heart. And I suggest, Matthew, we should think about a series called "I Believe I Can Fly" and get people to speak on the theme who has such experience they can share from their life or from the lives whom they know. And I think that could be a great motivator. And I think that is a series that we should try to make, a viral story from MJC. I think it has got a very deep meaning and a very powerful meaning attached to it.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent idea. Guru, we started from school. We started the same dreams, same background, same village. And we went through college, junior college and engineering together. So in the same class. So what I know, what Koshi said made sense to all of us. Our own experience in life.
Correct.
Very good. So what I am saying is, if I can steal your theme line, I believe I can fly. I can ask the other esteemed members here. Probably each of them can go through what has happened to them in their life, and then probably provide us a motivational speech. I hope I have your permission to do that.
Please, so firstly, Matthew, that's not this thing. Please feel free to use that generously. At the beginning of the career, I used to have this song, at least half of it, played in most of the serious presentations that we made to clients and workshops that we conducted to clients. We'd actually tried to inspire government babus with this song. Can you imagine? So please feel free to use very freely.
I know. I was just... Anyway, if there is nothing else, can we kind of Koshi and Liz?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Guru, thanks once again from each of us here. It was brilliant.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay. Marcus, lovely seeing you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.